So Louise, what techniques do you recommend to parents for teaching their babies to sleep through the night?
The technique that I find that works the quickest is one that we call verbal reassurance. So this technique is basically going cold turkey on weaning your baby off all those things that they've been relying on. So it's perfect for if you've been feeding to sleep, rocking to sleep, walking around the room, jiggling, all the different things that parents might have been doing. So the principle with, or the idea with verbal reassurance is that you're going to give your baby the opportunity to self-settle. So this might be a rude shock to a baby that's been given a lot of help to get to sleep, but you're going to give them plenty of opportunity to self-settle while giving them encouragement and checking in on them regularly. So it's different to just what's called cry it out, where you just pop baby into bed, shut the door, walk away and leave them to cry until they get to sleep.
Okay.
This technique works by checking in on them at 5, 10, 15 minute intervals. So you pop your baby into bed, you know, do your normal routine, you know, kiss, cuddle, feed, all of the bedtime stories, pop them into bed, and then you need a really simple phrase, something like, "It's night time, I'll see you in the morning." Or "Mummy loves you, I'll see you in the morning." Something really simple, because you're going to say it over and over again.
Sure.
So say the phrase, tuck baby in, and then go. And go for 5 minutes, which might be quite a long time if you've never heard your baby cry, you've always been too worried and, you know, rushed in and patted and fed and, you know, tried to make it better instantly. So go for 5 minutes, and that will probably be the hardest time actually, because it's a shock for both of you. And then after 5 minutes, go back into the bedroom, but don't rush over and try and calm them down, because your baby is learning a really important skill of how to self-settle. So they'll see you and they'll think you're going to rush over and pick them up and fix it, but you just go halfway to the cot and say your phrase, "It's night time, I'll see you in the morning," and then you go for 10 minutes this time. It's important for parents to realise that the phrase is not going to stop the baby crying. It's not going to calm them down instantly and go to sleep.
Sure.
It's part of a plan for you.
Okay.
Because the thing that'll teach your baby to sleep is parents sticking to a plan really consistently. So you going in, go halfway to the cot, say the phrase and go, gives you something to stick to. And it reminds your baby that you haven't moved to Mars and abandoned them. You've just gone out of the room.
Sure.
So you go for 10 minutes and then come back in and repeat the phrase again. Again, just go halfway to the cot and say the phrase, "It's night time, I'll see you in the morning." Again, your baby might still be crying, quite likely if it's the first time. Just have to try and realise it's just like a moment in time and it'll be sorted in a couple of days.
Okay.
So go, and this time wait for 15 minutes and then go back in and repeat the phrase again, and then just keep repeating the phrase and checking in on them every 15 minutes until baby falls asleep.
Okay.
So definitely the first time you try this, it will be the hardest, and parents might feel like giving up or feeling like you know, that they're doing something terrible to their baby, but you know, it's only going to take 3 days in most cases, sometimes quicker, sometimes 1 or 2 nights of using this technique, and baby will be sleeping all night.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do the babies often cry for hours? Like, is it really every 15 minutes you're going in and it's kind of like a 2 to 3 hour thing?
It's not long.
Okay.
You know, sometimes the first time, that first kind of 7 o'clock bedtime when people try it, and the first time that baby wakes in the night, because you need to be really consistent and use the same technique through the night when your baby wakes. So it might be 40 minutes, it might be 60 minutes the first and second time, but with most babies, once they realise that actually mum and dad are serious and actually they just need to lie down and go to sleep, generally the amount of time that baby's crying for reduces rapidly, and by the second night they might be only waking up once or twice, and by the third night you might be just getting kind of 5 minutes of grizzling rather than full-on screaming. Babies do learn really quickly as long as you're consistent. So it's really important for parents to use this technique if they're prepared to follow through on it for 3 days, and use it for all of the use it for bedtime and use it for any time baby wakes in the night. Because it would be super confusing for baby if you use this technique at bedtime, so you do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, baby falls asleep, mum and dad go hooray, and then at 3 o'clock baby wakes up crying and mum goes, baby must be hungry and rushes in, picks them up immediately and feeds them back to sleep, puts them back into bed sound asleep.
Right.
You're kind of undoing.
Mixed message.
Yeah, exactly. A really mixed message and undoing what baby learned at bedtime.
Okay.
So it's important, if you follow this technique, it will work for 99% of babies within a few days if you use it consistently.
Okay.
It's incredible how quickly it works, and the feedback from parents we get every day is, it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be, and it worked so much faster. I wish I'd done it months ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about with their day sleeps? Can you use the same technique?
Yes, you
during
can.
the day?
Yes, and again, it is good if you can be consistent. Parents often will use more help during the day to get their babies to sleep because, you know, they're there and they'll put them in a buggy, or they'll carry them round, or they'll drive them round the block to get them off to sleep in the day. And again, it's a mixed message if you do that in the day and do differently at night.
Okay.
So part of day sleeps that's really important is to have a structured routine. So you're putting your baby to sleep for their day sleeps at the same time every day, so their little body clock will know, you know, what you're expecting.
Right.
Babies get so alert and so nosy that it takes them quite a lot to switch off. So having at least the same time every day can help with that.
Okay.
And then use the same 5, 10, 15 minutes to get them off to sleep. And for babies that are really chronic catnappers and wake up after 45 minutes, still screaming, still exhausted, parents often use this technique to teach their baby to go back to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah. So the waking at 45 minutes is the same issue of baby not being able to self-settle. And so if a baby wakes up after 45 minutes and they still appear to be tired, I would definitely suggest people try this technique to get their baby to do another sleep cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. Just try for, say, an hour during the day. If they've already had 45 minutes sleep, you try to teach them to go back to sleep for an hour and they still haven't gone back to sleep. At that stage, I would get them up. It'd be time for another feed, and you'll all be a bit over-trying by that stage. Yeah.
Okay.
But it is with catnappers, it's important for parents to really look at their babies', you know, demeanour and their behaviour when they wake up. Some babies just are happy with 45-minute sleeps. If they wake up smiling and laughing and they're perky and ready to eat and play, there's no point in trying to get them to go back to sleep. You just stress yourself out, and a lot of mums particularly get themselves into a terrible state thinking that their baby has to sleep for an hour and a half or 2 hours because some book said so.
Yes.
People need to really read their baby and see if they're happy with a short sleep, then they're happy with a short sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there has been a little bit in the media about, you know, this kind of sleep technique might long-term damage your baby. What do you think about that?
I think it's scaremongering, and I don't buy it at all.
Okay.
There's a lot of really good academic research that backs up that teaching your baby to sleep is really incredibly valuable.
Great.
There was a research study done a few years back that looked at over 50 different individual academic studies. They found that teaching your baby to sleep with techniques such as I've described actually has the opposite effect of that babies are happier, they're more settled, they fuss less, they're more attached to their parents. There's a lot of really huge benefits to babies and to their parents of having babies that get adequate sleep. It's important to remember that a good sleep training plan will only take a couple of days for significant improvements, and parents need to compare that to if their baby was sleep deprived for months or years. That really seriously impacts on their development and how happy and attached their baby is.
Right.
So I think it's really important to just put it in the context of a couple of days of some crying through the night to learn a lifetime skill is really, really important just to keep it in context. And also babies that wake up many times a night, they cry a lot. You know, if a baby is miserable at bedtime and then wakes 4 to 6 times a night every night for months, that's a massive amount of crying. So just kind of doing a little bit with a really clear plan, you know, it's just modest in comparison.
Yes,
so I'm really, really super confident that this technique works quickly and it's incredibly beneficial to parents and to babies.
Great.
And you get a happier baby really quickly. Yeah.
Are there any other techniques that you recommend?
There is another technique that I have found works really well, and this is for parents particularly that are just not comfortable with any crying. If they come from a really strong attachment parenting philosophy, or they just are using so much help to get their baby to sleep with something like feeding or rocking to sleep, and they just can't quite see that they'd be able to be consistent with the verbal reassurance, then using what we call gradual behaviour change works really well.
Okay.
So basically with this technique, rather than go cold turkey on your help, you're just going to cut the behaviour down really gradually over a period of a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So this technique you need to allow a lot more time, and you need to be really, really patient because the changes are going to be very gradual. So you could use this if you're currently rocking your baby to sleep. You'd start with the point of you rock your baby until they're sound asleep, and the end point you want to get to is that you can put your baby into their cot wide awake and they can fall asleep without any help. So if you sort of start with that spectrum and then just break it down into little bite-sized pieces. So the first change might be that you rock your baby until the baby is drowsy but not completely asleep, pop them into their cot and then pat them until they fall asleep.
Okay.
So you're still providing a huge amount of help. You might get some grizzling, you might get a little bit of crying, but you know, modest in comparison to if you just went cold turkey.
Yeah.
But the major difference is the baby's actually fallen asleep in their bed rather than on you.
Okay.
So small but really significant difference. So you might do that for a few nights until baby adjusts the fact that they're not falling asleep on you. And then you might start rocking them until they're relaxed and calm, but you know, their eyes aren't rolling back in their head. Again, pop them into their cot in that state, and then just stay with them and pat them and be with them while they get drowsy. And then you might try stepping away and see if they can get from drowsy to asleep without your hand on them. Maybe you're still next to them, or maybe you need to stay holding their hand but not actually patting.
Okay.
So again, just a really small change, and you just gradually remove the help over a period of a few weeks until you can cuddle your baby until they're relaxed and pop them into bed and maybe just give them a little bit of a pat and then walk away, and baby can do the last bit of falling asleep by themselves.
Right.
So that's a really good technique. There's a really good book called The No Cry Sleep Solution, which covers that in a lot of detail and is a lovely read for parents who just want a really nurturing technique, but they know that they need to teach baby to self-settle, you know, in just a way that suits their family.
Sure.
We want you to join our family. Like us on Facebook to get expert parenting advice, hear about upcoming events, competitions and specials. We'd love to get your feedback or answer your questions. Facebook.com/The Parenting Place.